Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. Uncanny X-Men 182 from 1984 by Chris Claremont John Romita Jr. and Dan Green, featuring Rogue on the cover here. So, what's going on here? We see some people down, looks like shield agents, and someone aiming a gun. So, by the way, the cover is done by Romita Jr. only. So, which is, you don't see him inking a lot. So, this is the X-Men classic cover. So, Madness. And this appears to be a Rogue solo story. So, of course, if you remember last issue, by the way, I have a playlist. I have an X-Men playlist, a New Mutants playlist, and an X Universe playlist where I put everything that's X-Men related, all in reading order. So, check those out. So, if you remember, Professor Xavier sent her to go find the New Mutants. They've been in Battle World, and I also have a Secret Wars playlist. However, I'm only in issue 6 on that as of this recording. So check that out. All right. So Rogue says, "Son of a gun, I just and she speaks. She's from Louisiana, I believe. So she's like, I just flown halfway around the world. So supposed to put in an accent with her. So, all right. And of course, here we have our credits. Tom Zakowski, one of the three greatest letterers of all time, along with John Workman Jr. and Kevin Kline. And Louise Jones and Ann Nocenti are the editors. Louise Jones will be leaving after this issue, and Nocenti will become the full-time editor after this. And so, um, she's flying, and I like this. Look at this. The sky is done on, oh my goodness, magenta. I was couldn't, and so she sees this airplane, and back then they had the pilot, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer, and so um, she is going to the Xavier's school. So she goes in there. We get a little bit of her story. Mystique, of course, her mom, the Brotherhood. Now she's one of the X-Men. So um, she kind of does like being one of the good guys. And she says sooner or later I'm gonna have to choose my family or my friends. And so she says the place is quiet. There must be nobody home. And so the prof sent me to check on the New Mutants and Kitty Pryde while he and the X-Men fight that giant dragon that followed us from outer space, which was, of course, last issue. So she opens the door and sees there's nobody there at this moment. Of course, the New Mutants during this time were in the I've covered them in the new. They were with fighting the Hellfire Club, so they either will get there or have been there, and maybe they're just out doing something else. So, all right. So she goes, I must be running on empty. The alarm's been ringing ever since I came home, but I just realized it. It's coming from Xavier's study, and so we got some calls on the emergency phone, and of course, this one is Madeline about Cyclops vanishing, and of course, Cyclops was with them on the Secret Wars, which she lets us know, but she figures Cyclops should be home uh, by now here. So there's another message. He knows that voice. It's Michael Rossi, whom she knew when she was. It's Rogue's origin. She had absorbed Captain Marvel's, or at that time Miss Marvel's, powers and memories. And so check out that X-Men or that link that I posted in there, and you can read more about her origin here. So she knows Michael Rossi. He used to be the boyfriend of Carol Danvers. So she's gonna go see what's going on here. Of course, as she flies out, she doesn't finish reading or listening to the messages, which of course, it's a message from Eliana, letting them know that the New Mutants were captured, and so that the New Mutants were going there, and so, and you can see here that there was a note, and so Rogue just heard that message and left, and so anyway, so here's the Shield helicarrier, and so um the Shield agents here goes, once more, what's your name? The man is stubborn. Um, we've been at this for days, and he hasn't said a word. Hey, Paul, you think he's a mute? And of course, he hits him. Well, he makes noises anyway. That's a start as they kick him. And he says, cut it out, Price. What I do, partner? It's not my fault if the prisoner's so clumsy. So he keeps tripping over his own big feet. Up's the daisy, fella, as he picks him up here. You sure you want to go through with this, play hero? All you like, my friend. In the end, you'll talk. Everybody does. And so he pushes him against the wall here. He says, the question is, do you really want to get beaten to a pulp in the process? And so the other guy says, you know Fury's ordered, Price, no rough stuff. And the Price is like, Fury's getting old and maybe too soft for his own good. Besides, old buddy, who's going to tell him? And so the dude goes, I'm taking a break. I need a breath of fresh air. And he says, suit yourself. I'll mind the store. Don't sweat it, pal. I won't kill you. I won't even break any bones. Yet. And so this guy's walking into his room. He says, we caught the intruder in the computer center scanning for data on the Hellfire Club and its current chairman, Sebastian Shaw. I'd better report it in. So this is Agent Garwood with an urgent Delta flash for Royal Midnight. And they acknowledge it. And they go, Major, we have an unauthorized transmission originating from within the helicarrier. And they go, can you pinpoint it? He says, not a prayer. It's an ultra-speed burst and in code. Try it anyway, Rosen, and alert Colonel Fury. And so it turns out that these guys are actually working for the Hellfire Club, and they're infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. And so they're showing, so all this time when you thought that he was calling S.H.I.E.L.D., he was not. So pretty clever writing. And so they show him the picture, and Shaw asks Tessa to identify him, and she says, Colonel Michael Rossi, United States Air Force field operative with Special Investigation Services, reported missing in action some years ago. And he says, is he a threat to the inner circles? Unknown, Sebastian. Insufficient data. And Sebastian says, the fact that Rossi is curious about me at all makes him dangerous. Eliminate him, Garwood. And so we get a astral projection. It says, good evening, Sebastian. And he says, it's how nice to see you, Emma, even if only as a telepathic whatever. To what do I owe the pleasure? And she says, I have acquired some new students at my Massachusetts Academy. Charles Xavier's former proteges to New Mutants. Would you care to meet them? And he says, I'd love to. I'll see you tomorrow. And so, of course, that takes place in New Mutants 17. So, like I mentioned, these things are done. I'm doing two stories at the same time, so sometimes I lose track as I do some of these things. So anyway, all right, here comes Rogue one of the things I do is, so I haven't read a lot of these issues in a long, long time. So I read them for the first time with you. So sometimes they surprise me just as much as they may surprise you. So, all right. So again, with the magenta, beautiful, beautiful here. Um, she says, if Mystique could see me now, the sun's almost gone. The sky's still light, but the ground's a shadow. Time I made my move. And so, Susie B, do your stuff. So, it looks like she's hanging up on resting on a pillow, which of course she can't. So, she throws a Susan B. Anthony, so it'd be a dollar, a coin dollar. So, the helicarrier is armored like a battleship, but if something thrown hard enough, it can punch through anything, like a straw hurled by a hurricane wind through the trunk of an oak. So you can see here, scash. And so that ball houses the main radar system, very delicate equipment. And so you can see the dollar bouncing through. And once it's out of action, this tub will be virtually blind. And all the confusion, who's to notice me slipping aboard? So, all right. And so she kicks through the door. Here come some scientists / agents. Rogue uses the door and disposes of them. And then she pulls this lever out and breaks it. This makes it so that people now have to open each door manually. So it neutralizes them. And so she thinks now everybody's just going to be too busy to worry about her. And so now here comes, oh my gosh, that agent. And he notices the doors are closing. So he does the thing where he just goes underneath it. And so he goes, beats me, Price. How's the prisoner? Clumsy as ever, partner. Give me a hand getting him back to his cell, will ya? And then he shoots him. And so it turns out this guy does not work for the Hellfire Club. This is the dude that works. So he's going to set the other guy up here. And he says, my apologies, Price. I have other plans for you and the good colonel here. He overpowered you, grabbed your gun, and shot you dead. I had no choice but to kill him. To satisfy Ballistic, I'll put my weapon in Rossi's hand and take yours for myself. No one will be the wiser. And suddenly from behind you can see Rogue. Pardon me, sugar. And of course, Rogue comes through and drops the door. And he tries to shoot her, but of course she's invulnerable, but not her clothes. So he's going to shoot Rosie, but she crushes the weapon and punches the agent here. And so Rogue is going to save Rosie and recognizes Carol's voice. They kind of go flip back and forth, and you will see where much later Rogue will actually be taken over by Captain Marvel. Or I should say the Captain Marvel personality. So Rogue goes through the hall and she goes, I have to find a place to go to ground and I can give him a proper examination. No point in being subtle. S.H.I.E.L.D. knows I'm here. I may as well leave by the most direct route. And then she wonders about Rosie's mission. And she says, was he working with Xavier? I'm sorry, not was he. He was working with Xavier, but was it officially sanctioned? And why the rough stuff from those S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives? One of them had murdered another and was about to execute him. Was the killer a mole? If so, who was he working for? So they dispatch a couple of jets, and they are going to intercept here. And she throws the dollar again, and it goes through the engine. You can see here it kind of blows it up here. And, of course, he ejects. And so there's the other eject, and they say she's fast, can't match her moves. And so she she's lost, and so he's gonna return to base. So kind of a quick way to uh, resolve the situation here. So now we're in Cape Cod here. So it looks like she's under the Miss Marvel personality right now because of the way she's talking. So here she is with Rosie here, and sets him on the bed there. So this is Carol Danvers's mom's or parents' cottage here, and so she's gonna go and check the pantry. And so Rosie starts to come through, and he starts to move, and here Rogue says, "I wouldn't advise moving, Ace." And so she made him soup here, and he does feel the Captain Marvel is her there. Um, and so look at Rosie, he's all beaten up here. So, she keeps calling him Ace, of course. So, um, does anyway, as I mentioned before, she's got the Captain Marvel personality in there, even though Captain Marvel is a separate person, or Miss Marvel at that time, who is binary right now. So anyway, and so, of course, he knows this is Rogue, but she is, um, she's she's with that illusion that she's Captain Marvel, so she's um he doesn't realize that she has the personality of Captain Marvel. So he's about to find out because she's speaking to him as if she was Captain Marvel. So, and I'm sort of just kind of moving it along. I know that normally I read along here, but I'm trying to not. These Chris Claremont can go sometimes. Some of these videos can be 30 to 45 minutes long. So I've been trying to narrate a little bit. So again, Rogue is speaking as Captain Marvel. And so they continue here, and she sees her face, and she's like, "What happened?" And Rosie finally is going to try to snap her out that she's not Captain Marvel, and she's not pretending, and she falls there, and she's remembering all of Captain Marvel's memories. And so, like I mentioned here, and then remembering her fighting her. And this, I have covered all this in Avengers Annual 10, which is on the X Universe playlist. So Rosie goes to check her out, and she's back to being a Rogue here. And Rogue finally tells her that she really did think that she was Miss Marvel, and she feels terrible. You can see her crying here. And that those memories just came when she found out that he was almost hurt. And he's, of course, angry as to why she would have done that. But of course, she was a different person back then, and she kind of lets him know that's why she went to Xavier's school, to learn to control her power, because her power is uncontrollable at this time. And she apologizes, and he says, "What happened to Carol?" She says, "I'm Carol, and all the way that counts." And of course, he smacks her, because why wouldn't he? And says no. And he says, "I wish I had the power to kill you." And she says, "So do I, my love. So do I." And so we are now going to go to the last page. Of course, the dude survived, and he's being interviewed by Nick Fury. And of course, shows her a picture of Rogue, and he says, "That's her." And so you can see here, this says she killed Price and escaped with the prisoner. And so they think it's is Rogue one of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants? Though lately she's been affiliated with the X-Men, and so she thinks you're strange. Price was shot. Why would someone with Rogue's assets stoop to using a gun? That doesn't make sense, she thinks. And so Nick Fury presses a button and says, issue an all points alert for Rogue. Bring her in. She's to be considered extremely dangerous. If she resists, I hereby authorize the use of deadly force. And so next issue, he'll never make me cry. So Uncanny X-Men 182. I know that I seem to have been a little off. I do apologize. I just have been some of these issues sort of start running together, so I just got a little confused, but we managed to get through it here. So Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr., and Dan Green. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.